You're watching and listening to The Daily Living Show with D. Elias.
Welcome to Daily Living. On this episode, we're going to be discussing Iridology and Meridian Therapy and Reiki. I'm in Mena, Arkansas, and with me today I have Carol Rodgers. First of all, Carol, thank you very much for having me here. This is just so incredibly exciting. I'm just trying to absorb it all. Tell me, what got you started in this profession?
Approximately 30 years ago, 30 years ago, my medical doctor diagnosed me with colon cancer. I told him that I was not afraid of the cancer, wasn't really afraid of death, but that I was very much afraid of the treatment. I had watched a very dear friend basically die from too much chemotherapy. He recommended that I see an herbalist and an iridologist. He and I had butted heads before when he would want to do medical prescriptions and I would demand that he came up with something natural. I went to the iridologist and the herbalist. Medically, they had given me 6 months to a year. 6 months later, they could find no traces of it. His treatment basically was based upon the reading of my irises. We followed diet, very strict healing program. 6 months later, they could find absolutely no traces of the cancer. At that time, I did construction work. I was a welder's helper. Thoroughly enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed being outside. It took me a while to find a school that taught iridology the same way that he had read my eyes. But I had noticed that as my children grew older, and with them and with myself, that symptoms are not necessarily causes. This was what the whole basis of iridology is about, is to determine cause. When I found the school was based out of Boulder, Colorado, originally out of England. And through England, they taught the Germans' viewpoints, who were basically the basic pioneers of the iridology that I know. We have Bernard Jensen, who is an American iridologist. Bernard Jensen's theory and symptoms theory is basically the same. It's based upon symptoms and not causes. Was very much intrigued by it. Went to school out in Boulder. It involved doing an internship there. It involved a lot of mail as far as studying irises. My instructor was very deep into determining how one part of the body affected the other parts of the body, and also in determining causes. When I finished and got a degree, I decided to go on for my master's. In order to get my master's, it required 10 case studies from beginning to end. Before I had finished 5, I had more people calling, wanting me to see them, strictly by word of mouth. I've never really been a people pleaser, and so my first thought was, no, I was going to go back out on a job. Well, I went for a walk down the lane close to the house, and this voice says, okay, so somebody calls and they tell you that they're dying and that no one can help them. What are you going to do? Say, I'm sorry, I'm going to go play in the dirt?
Right.
Well, it doesn't really work that way. And so I started seeing clients. In iridology, I would like to take a moment, if I could, to explain this. In the eye, in the center, of course, you have the pupil. The zone around the outside is the stomach zone. The next zone coming through here is the large intestines, and sits in the center is the small intestines, just like the body. I'll never forget when I was trying to learn it all. With the Germans, everything is in degrees. And I'm thinking, there's no way I can learn this. I'm a dumb little girl from Arkansas. And I step back and this voice says, it's just like looking at the body. Here you have the foot, the knee, the leg. On the outside you have the skin, you have the circulation, the flow of the blood. You move up and you have the groin, you have the pelvic, then you have the testicles or the ovaries. You have the liver and the gallbladder, the hand. You move right on up, coming up to the shoulders, the neck, the ears, into the brain zones. On the inside, you have the back, you have the throat area, your thyroid. So pretty much, basically, in looking at the iris, you're looking at the body.
Right.
Right eye is different from the left eye, in that the right eye is for the right side of the body, left eye is for the left side. When you get into the iris and viewing it with a 10x magnifier, you have fibers. And you have various what's called body constitutions. And these are based upon how close the fibers are. With the body constitution, this helps you to determine the weaknesses of that particular body. In the iris, you're able to see pre-birth trauma. This theory was put together by a medical doctor out of France, and it's called time risk factors. And so in the iris, you're able to tell pretty much the trauma that an individual experienced when they were in their mother's womb. If the mother had trauma, then it affected the unborn child. You're able to see inherited tendencies in the iris. You're able to see chemicals. The early German research proves that inorganic matter never leaves unless you do a special cleansing to take care of it.
Right.
So in the iris, it's if the mark, when you look in and we say mark, the mark can either be a cloud, the mark can be a dark line, the cloud, it can be an arrow shaped, various shapes. If the mark sits in the middle of the zone, then you know truly it's that organ or that part of the body's fault. If the marks are feeding from out of the bowel, then you know that this is from toxicity that's leaking from the bowels into the body. If the marks are closer to the outside, then you know it's due to circulation. And so it's basically a thing of seeing where the dark marks are and what they're connected to.
Right.
When I joined the International Iridology Research Association, I was required to take a year of college anatomy. And it was so interesting because the very first night, the professor says the definition of disease, all diseases, is disharmony within. And basically that's what we do with the iris. Once that you determine where the main problems are, you start looking for the body's weakest elimination channels. Now that we have the lungs, the kidneys, and the skin are all body elimination channels. If one of them is extremely weak, then you look to the other two because they're going to be overloaded,
Right.
carrying the toxin from the front ones. A lot of what we see now is candida, is yeast, which basically is known to cause chronic fatigue and to autoimmune disorders. The candida can show in the bowels, it can show in any one organ. It doesn't necessarily have to show in the same spots. One of the things that I realized in dealing with the eyes was that I was able to see the meridians in the eyes. The meridians are electrical circuits or pathways that chi flows along. The meridians date back to 800 BC and come out of Egypt. So in the iris, for instance, if the individual says, an example we had yesterday. A young girl was suffering from migraine headaches. She had been to medical doctors and facilities all over the state of Arkansas. Nothing had helped. It was really sad when she went through talking about all the things that they had done to her to try to get rid of the migraines, and nothing had worked. So in her iris, we showed basically we had marks showing definitely through the head area that she was having headaches, but we also showed where the rib cage was folding in over the liver and over the stomach area. Well, migraines are associated with digestion. We also showed the leg, mainly down into the darkness of the foot. Looking at this, then I know that this is going to be meridian connected. And I asked to see her feet. And looking at her feet, the ankle on the right side turned out. Questioned that. Well, she had broke her ankle a couple of times playing basketball. The ankle was weak.
Wow.
But the ankle, this is one of the things that people fail to realize today, is that every part of the body is connected to another part.
Right.
And so I told her I couldn't give her any promises, but that I'd like to put her on the table and do Reiki on the meridians, thereby opening up the life force throughout her body to see if it would help any. When she laid down, I asked her if she had had any birth trauma. And she said yes, that she was born with her feet turning in. Well, by turning in the feet, this was everything connected all the way up to the back of her head. When I showed her the various meridians that ran off of the ankles up to the back of her head and through her body, it made a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And so even though in working on her, it didn't totally alleviate the headache, it did help. And she left out of here feeling a lot better, and so there's a little bit of hope. Another one, which also involved the feet, was a client that I had taught Reiki to and that I had seen approximately 15, 20 years ago, who now is working as a nurse in a VA hospital in Texas, and even being allowed to practice the Reiki on. She made the 9-hour drive up here because she had gotten a really bad mammogram on her breast. In her iris for the breast zone, which sits in here, it actually showed the bowel ballooned out and almost like little lines, nerve endings that were pulling on the breast. And examining her foot, because this actually made no sense, the foot showed that all of the meridians on the foot and the reflexology points on the foot that connected to the breast were swollen and knotted. I asked her what had happened to her foot, and she said that she had broken it a couple of times, and that was the way it had healed. So we sent her home to put comfrey leaves on it to help break loose the inorganic calcium buildup in the foot, to use Reiki on herself, and to use visualization. I believe greatly in visualization. And there's, she's on the answer machine saying that the foot cleared up, mammogram came back clean.
Awesome.
Sonogram sounded good. There is absolutely no problems.
Very good.
On the visualization, this is another factor that happened. A lady came to me and very noticeably deformed, had a major limp, one shoulder up in the air. She told me that she had been diagnosed with a rare type of bone disorder as a child. Well, her iris showed absolutely nothing wrong with her spine, but that we had a lot of darkness in through the pelvic bone, in the hip zone, which would be an indication that the hip was pulling down. It went on to show that it was the bowel in here that was causing this. So when I explained this to her, she looked at me like I was a little crazy. But she agreed to go home and do castor oil packs on the abdominal area, thereby loosening the muscle
Right.
that would relax the hip and therefore the back. She came back a week later, did a treatment on her. She left out. She came back a week later and she could tell a difference. I told her I wanted her to go home and put up a picture of a perfect spine, to stand there and look at it and say, this is what your spine looks like.
Right.
You were misdiagnosed. Well, it was amazing because at the end of 30 days, you would never know anything was wrong.
Oh.
She no longer had a limp. When you get into restoring harmony, we also have to take into account that every season affects a different organ.
Right.
This goes back to the almanac and the old timers who would line the kids up every fall and give them
Sassafras tea.
sassafras tea. That's right. Serpent black drop.
Right.
All of those to flush them out. This was all a seasonal thing. And this is what we find. The season that we're in now affects the lungs and the large intestines. The lungs runs off of this right here. The large intestines off of the shoulder, which pulls everything in. And so as everything pulls in, then this locks up the neck, and everybody's complaining about allergies and sinus problems.
Absolutely.
Where in all actuality, it's just the body trying to get ready for winter.
Right. A lot of people, I should say, come and see you when the doctors are not able to diagnose them.
That's right.
But what I like about iridology is a doctor, for instance, allergies or something, a doctor's going to give you medication to mask the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
You help them discover what caused it to begin with and fix it to where no medication's even needed.
That's right. We use the kinesiology, which is a form of muscle testing, to determine what they will respond to and what they will not respond to. We even offer this free for them to bring in their prescription drugs to see if we're getting any reaction, any inner reactions there. We do this on all herbal supplements that's recommended. I'm not really a big pill pusher. We try to start off with diet, really big on packs and poultices, where we put the herbs on the outside of the body. We put the oils on the outside of the body. So many of the clients I get are on so many pharmaceutical drugs that you can't really do too much as far as supplements go.
Right.
We run a really high track record. People are amazed that in 2 weeks of just simply changing their diet or sticking a cloth around them, that they feel better.
Right. Once you diagnose through you look at their irises and you diagnose, that's where the Meridian Therapy comes in, correct?
Yes. The eyes pretty much tell us where the imbalance is. The Meridian Therapy with the Reiki is what helps us to restore harmony, to correct the imbalance or the disharmony.
Right.
In the iris, you can see emotions. The Meridians help to clear up emotions. My son is an emotional therapist, along with being a Reiki therapist.
Right.
So we pretty much try to cover all avenues and aspects. So many times, and there again, it's just that medically, in my opinion, the medical doctors are not taught this. And so therefore they do not recognize this.
Absolutely.
And I believe that in a lot of ways their hands are tied. You know, another example is we had a young man come in, he had a rash. They had been diagnosing the rash on his back, coming under his right side, as shingles. Okay, and that's what it looked like, was shingles. His iris showed that he had a major issue going on in his lower lung. and that pretty much this was toxin seeping out of the skin that the lungs were unable to filter out.
Wow.
And so there again, in talking to him, he had been hit by an automobile as a child. The shoulder up here was folding in on the lung, and this was what was preventing the lung from functioning properly.
Right.
There was also a great deal of anger there. Still this little boy, angry,
Right.
got hit by this car, messed up his life, you know? And so he's doing really well. It took a while to get everything opened up there, to get the trauma released, to get the body back. Exercises, we have people go home and do a lot of exercises. Diet's a biggie.
Right.
Basically, even medically, they tell you that if you can keep your body alkaline, you can overcome anything.
Absolutely.
Cancer cells can't live in an alkaline body.
That's exactly right.
So we really push high alkaline diet. This is the biggie. We don't count calories. People are amazed. They'll go on a high alkaline diet and they lose weight. You know, we don't have any limit on calories or fats or anything like that. Skin brushing. So often in the iris you'll see where the skin is darkened, and what this is an indication of is that the skin is trapping the toxins. You can see fibromyalgia in the iris. Dallas-Fort Worth, the Environmental Testing Board, back approximately 15 years ago, proved that fibromyalgia was caused from an overload of synthetic material. Polyester is made with chemicals. You put the chemicals right next to your skin, the chemicals soak into the bloodstream, your body hurts.
Right.
This is one of the things that you can see in the iris, one of the things that people can feel a major difference in. A lot of rebellion because most everybody's closet's filled full of polyester material.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We had there again a really interesting case. That lady came in, she was on oxygen, did not want to be on oxygen, very resentful of it. And they had diagnosed her with COPD and lung problems. Her iris showed that we had blockages in the esophagus area through here, which was preventing her from breathing deep.
Mm.
So read her irises, told her that in order to help her, she was going to have to change her diet, get rid of her polyester material, and get a wool blanket to put underneath her sheet to help block the electromagnetic waves. She came back a week later, stepped up to read her eyes, and I said, "You didn't do any of this."
Oh, no.
And she just couldn't understand how those things were supposed to help her.
Right.
Well, her husband was in the room, and he said, "All I can say is if she can tell that by looking in your iris, you need to go home and change it."
Right.
So she came back the next time, and she had worked on her diet. The lungs did look better. She was amazed that when I would work on her, her oxygen tank would cut off. She did not need her oxygen as long as I was working on her.
Mm.
The next visit, she was fussing about her having to give up her polyester clothes. And a friend of hers informed her that if she would have watched the program on TV that showed how polyester was made, she wouldn't put it on her body.
Right.
And so the next step was she gave up the polyester material. She ended up changing the carpet in her home, and within a very short length of time was off of the oxygen, was back to riding her horses and living a good full life.
Right.
So, but we have primarily people that come in here from all over. We had we were very blessed and honored. We had Amish that hired a driver and came in from Missouri. But the main reason that they come in is there again. A lot of medical doctors tell them it's all in their head.
Right.
It's stress.
Mm-hmm. And they know better.
And they know better.
Right.
Where with the iridology, you're able to tell what the cause is.
Right. That is awesome. I will put the contact information so people will know how to contact you for an appointment. And you also teach Reiki.
Yes, I do.
And do you have any other classes other than Reiki, or?
Several people have been after me again to teach one on the elements, on the seasons. So periodically, it just depends on getting me away from the lake and doing it.
Right.
The Reiki is one of the things I'd like to touch briefly on. Early in my career, several different ones, my ex-father-in-law and others, had tried to encourage me to do hands-on healing. Most of those people were very egotistical, and someone had told me once, you never let a fat man tell you how to get skinny. You never let a poor man tell you how to get rich.
Right.
And that you didn't take anybody's advice if you didn't want to be like them.
Right.
And so I backed away from hands-on healing. Early in the career, I had a young lady come to me that had a pacemaker. She had contacted hepatitis when they put the pacemaker in. She was very angry. She said that if I didn't help her, she was going to buy the books and do it on her own. I knew that my knowledge was limited, and I still knew in my heart that no matter what the herbs did, that there was no way they could take care of her problem.
Right.
So I pretty much put out the word that I was looking for hands-on healers. Got a call from a lady out of Hot Springs, and she asked me if I knew what Reiki was. And I told her no. And she said that it was a universal healing energy that was passed to you through a master. And so that was the only way really that you could have the full benefit of it.
Right.
So I agreed to try it with that because then, okay, this is something coming through me. I'm not going to be egotistical and think I'm doing it.
Right.
So my two kids and I, we went and we took the Reiki class, which proved to be extremely beneficial in helping people. This was pretty much what led to the Meridian work, was when I realized after a 3-day fast and prayer on how to fix my son's back, and I was instructed to put one hand at the back of his head and one on his tailbone. In doing this, his back goes t-t-t-t. So then I started praying to be led to the book to tell me what it was I had done. I was led to a book that was written by a chiropractor out of Poto, who was an awesome man that I fully believed was one of God's special people hiding behind a chiropractor's license.
Right.
I opened it up, and it was a book on acupressure, acupuncture. And right at the beginning, he says the definition of acupressure, acupuncture is energy applied to a focal point. Energy. That
Right.
was the energy from my hands.
Right.
And so then it became a thing of pretty much playing with it, working on my son, working on his friends, pretty much on backs, looking and studying the meridians, which are intriguing in their own and the way they connect through the body. We are told that we are electrical, and the meridians are basically pathways for chi, their life force.
Right.
I ask people to see their bodies sort of like electrical wiring, and if a wiring gets crimped, then electricity can't flow through it. One day I was reading a client's eyes that was having an asthma attack, and normally for her it would take everything her medical doctor could do, everything the herbs could do, everything her chiropractor could do to keep her breathing. And I started seeing the meridians. I saw the lung meridian. And I started saying, I can take care of this. I can take care of this. Finally, she said, well, take care of it. So I pulled out the table and put her on it and laid the books out and started putting my hands on the lung meridian and the meridians surrounding it. In a short length of time, she started breathing, and she went for approximately 4 months without having another attack.
Oh, wow.
And so that kind of set my brain waves off.
Right. You know that was meant for you.
I
to
knew
do
that was it.
Mm-hmm.
The eyes fascinate me. You never find any two that are alike.
Right.
You never find any two people that are alike. And so therefore you never find any disease that is caused by the same factor.
Right. Which is very interesting because you meet different people from all walks of life.
Oh,
every
yes.
day.
Yes. The waiting room, you may have somebody out there that's, here is a freebie that doesn't have any money that you're helping. We have a Catholic nun that comes that took the Reiki herself. I mean, it's endless.
Right.
We've had people come in here from all over the United States. Once we had a waitress come in from Memphis, Tennessee, that had heard about me through a truck driver.
Oh, really? Because you really don't do any form of advertising.
No, I do not.
But still, you have people come to you from all over.
Yes. In fact, the not doing advertising was one of my hesitations for doing this.
Right. Well, I'm glad you did.
Until my son said, Mom, just look at it like you're promoting healthy living.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
You know? Because people do not, their minds have become so busy that, in fact, there's a new thing that's out that's called Mindfulness that's extremely intriguing that is helping a lot of my clients. Mindfulness, the first magazine I picked up on it was put out by Time magazine. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. And it's talking about how people's lives have become so overloaded
Right.
that their minds can no longer focus.
Right.
And in essence, your mind is what heals your body.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind, in essence, is what controls your life.
It can either heal you or make you sick.
That's it. That's it. So it was really interesting because the mindfulness thing is based upon deep breathing and concentrating on your breath. And I'm thinking, well, this is no different than meditation.
Right.
But the article goes on to explain that in meditation you concentrate more on a word or on a scene or on an object. Where on this, all you're supposed to do is breathe in, breathe out, and feel your breath.
Right.
They suggest in the article that you start off with 10 minutes and work up to 20. So I did this, and I think about 4 days, 5 days, I'm thinking, well, I can't tell any difference. I got up the next morning and it was like, where is my mind? And it was actually working. I wasn't consumed about who I had to see. I wasn't consumed about the orders I needed
You're
placed.
not stressing out.
I wasn't stressed out over the yard needed mowed, the house needed clean. It was just like, whoa.
Right.
And so since then, I have become a big promoter of the mindfulness technique. I'm finding now that oftentimes, and this is one of the things that I've noticed in the iris, but never really had an explanation for it, and that's where the central nervous system is steady on fight or flight. In an article recently, it explained that once your adrenal gland kicks into fight or flight, until you do something to actually calm it down, then it's always expecting something else bad to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
And you see this a lot in the iris. And what the article suggested was that you take time to actually go calm and calm your adrenal gland down. And it's not just a thing of calming your brain down,
Right.
but being aware of what's going on, being aware that you're nervous because you're expecting something bad to happen again. And I believe this is going to help a lot of people. I had a young man in here the other day, late teens, and he realizes this. He realizes that he's nervous. He's been accused of being lazy, and he's not. It's his adrenal glands burn out. So when I explained this to him, he was like, wow, what have I got to do? And I said, just take a few minutes, back away from your cell phone, back away from the games, go off and sit, tell yourself you're safe.
Right.
Just tell yourself you're okay, you're
Right.
safe, nothing bad's gonna happen.
We all need downtime.
Yes. So there again, I'm looking forward to using that with a lot of clients.
Yes. Very good. This has been very informational. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here.
Please support our sponsor, RenovationTea.com. You'll find a large variety from daily to specific herbal remedy teas, all certified organic and fair trade. Use DL10 to get a 10% discount. You can find details in the description below. If you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss an episode.